Welcome back to Collaboration Conversations. I'm your co host, Regina Partain Bergman. And as some of you know, my co host, Pearl Cox, is unable to be with us for a while. And so we have the pleasure of having guest co hosts. And I am delighted today to bring you our guest co host, Eric Yaillen. And Eric, I'm going to let Eric tell what he does. I'm going to let everybody do their own thing on this and tell what they do because they can do it so much better than me reading off of a list. But I am delighted that Eric has agreed to be our guest co-host today. So welcome, Eric. How are you doing today?
Nice to be here. I'm kind of tired from a very, very long weekend.
Sounds like it was a productive weekend, though.
Well, it was a busy business weekend. Dana, actually, who's on here with us, she was participating in it remotely from her location, and I was there live.
Ah,
But it was a very exciting weekend.
awesome.
Indeed.
Eric, would you introduce yourself a bit? Tell folks a little bit about who you are, what you do, who you serve, that kind of a thing.
Well, my name's Eric Yaillen. I've been in marketing communications ever since I was a teenager. It's been a interesting journey, but it's always been a passion of mine to be in marketing communications. Originally, I had my own company when I was, like you said, still a teenager. I worked for the founder of Manpower International in a nonprofit that he did. Then I went on to go to college and had lots of interesting experiences there. Eventually, I became a regional marketing director for Feld Entertainment, which most people know as Ringling Brothers Circus and Disney on Ice. From there, did that for 7 years. Eventually, I went in for some reason, I got into the computer business and started with a small company in around 1991 and got into the golf business. And my main client was the PGA of America. I landed them as a client. Then I started my own software company, did that till 2003, got sick and tired of the software business, decided I just wanted to play around and be in the golf business, went to work for a small nonprofit. But, that technology thing was always part of me. And eventually I introduced CRM systems to the United States Golf Association and led an initiative that involved all state regional golf associations in the United States. And then eventually I was the executive director of a golf association and I got sick, dropped out of the working world for 8 years and just started doing a comeback in the last year. But I just seem to gravitate to big players. And I started a relationship with Chad Nicely and Perry Belcher. Chad I had met in 2014. He just recently started a company with Perry Belcher, who's kind of known as the godfather of digital marketing. And they started a company together. I started doing some software development work with them. And that kind of gets us to where we are now. Eventually, I decided I was going to start a coaching business, started doing a lot of collaborations with a lot of different people. One of the people I met is on with us today, Dana, who I met through Chad, and she's also part of his world, but we're looking at doing some collaborations separately. Along the way, probably maybe one of the first people I met was Matt. And Matt is in an area that I'm always interested in. I've always been kind of on the leading edge on technology. I mean, I started in 1984 with technology. Well, so Matt is in the blockchain, augmented reality, virtual reality space. And so we're doing some collaborations there. And then because of my long storied history with customer relationship management systems and trying to find the right one, had a lot of failures along the way, but eventually I found my way to a company headed up by Johan in Australia. And so we're collaborating on a variety of different things as well. So that's kind of been my journey. But what I started was a company called Cognologic FX, which is a mashup of the words cognitive, logical, and effects, because I use my cognitive thinking abilities to come up with logical solutions that have positive effects. But along the way, and this kind of came about after meeting Matt and knowing that really the next iteration of technology is in this new thing called the metaverse. Well, so now I'm going into that next level, which is basically Web 3, where everyone's in Web 2.0. We're moving to Web 3.0, and that's augmented reality and virtual reality. And so we've got some projects going with Matt, who is brilliant in that space. And then, of course, my relationship with Perry and Chad led me to Dana, and we're doing some things in local marketing with in her space. So that's kind of where we are today.
Wow. And welcome back. You said you'd been away for 8 years. Welcome back. The world, is the world ready for you, Eric?
I don't think they were ready for me then, and they're probably not ready for me now.
Wow. I heard lots of collaborations in that introduction. That is amazing. Wonderful. Exciting
Well,
thing.
there's this saying, from Hello Dolly, there was the Dolly, Levi, and Associates, and it was, a jack of all trades and a master of none. So maybe that's a bit of my background. It's all about collaborations.
Collaboration's the name of the game, isn't it? Eric, would you introduce our panelists, please?
Well, since I would say the very first relationship I probably had was with Johan's company. He is based out of Melbourne, Australia. He has a collaboration and a company with a partner based in the Gold Coast of Australia. And they specialize in a variety of different things, of which one of them is customer relationship management systems. And eventually I found my journey to them. And, there's a lot of companies that do this, not many of them that do it right. But his company definitely does it right. And he also understands the value of collaborations. And so I really appreciate my relationship with him. So we got Johan Noguera out of Melbourne, Australia. Then my next collaboration is with Matt Smith, who heads a company called MetaMega. And he's in blockchain development and in virtual reality and augmented reality and all of those things that are the next iteration. So right now we exist in this thing called Web 2.0, and we're moving into the Web 3.0 space, and that's where Matt has his expertise. And he has a lot of expertise in a variety of areas, but he's brilliant in definitely in this space. And then through a relationship that I have here in Las Vegas with Chad Nicely and Perry Belcher, and Perry is the godfather of digital marketing, I eventually got to know Dana, and Dana and I are doing some collaborations with one of her clients. She is the business manager for the only female NASCAR driver owner. And so we're looking at ways to bring some other new opportunities to their world, especially in local marketing. And we met through knowing Chad and Perry.
Wow. It is an interesting, interconnected world, isn't it?
Well, there's some people who want to have 100% of everything. And unfortunately, that usually means a very little. I'd rather have a small piece of a big thing, which requires a lot of collaborations and a lot of different specializations. And I think that's ultimately the better way to go.
Awesome. Very good. Can we have our panelists maybe take a moment and just maybe give your thoughts on collaboration, or a little bit about why you do what you do?
Oh, sure. Is it okay if I go first?
Yeah.
Sure, Johan.
Cool. So I'm going to go back to about 2008, and I remember realizing I loved building websites, and that's all I ever wanted to do, build websites back in the day, right? And then all of a sudden I realized, hang on, I've got to go and find all these people who want websites built. So I thought, who already has these people who need websites built? And there was other digital agencies. Now, at this point in time, I launched a digital agency, and they said, oh, you're a competitor. I said, no, I'm not a competitor. I actually do one piece of what you do, quicker, faster, better than what you can do, and at a fixed cost. So how about I give you one project for free, and let's get started. And so they'd try it. And we ended up having 36 agencies who would send us work all day, every day. Our company blew up to, we had 100 employees. And so that's through collaboration. We did one piece. We said, hey, we do websites, we do it well. You do the Facebook ads, the Google, the other stuff. And people who'd come to us and get all that stuff done. They'd say, hey, I've got a website. What do I do now? I said, well, how about you go talk to my friend over here. He'll get you hooked up with Facebook ads. He'll get the clients coming through. Go talk to my other friend who's going to do all the copywriting for you. And so that's how this collaboration worked. Now, so that's my first foray into a business, which you have multiple players that if one person wins, everybody wins. So we built that. Then the next thing we did was we built a platform, a building management system with a mobile app. And I was actually building it for nightclubs and restaurants. And these guys came up to me and they said, geez, you're thinking small. Why don't you do this for, have you thought about putting this into buildings? I'm like, buildings? Why would a building want a mobile app? They said, well, have you seen all the junk that goes into the mail? And have you seen all the restaurants that are around there? And have you seen all the people who are servicing it? I'm like, oh, wow, okay, cool. So they said, let's partner up on this. And so we partnered up and we launched this to, pretty much most of the new buildings that are coming up in Australia now use my technology. And that's through a collaboration. These guys, they managed all the buildings. They were looking for technology. We had the technology. We partnered up, and we used the technology as a leverage point, because once they put it as part of their contract that they would give the technology to the building, and the technology became a profit center. So once they had the technology, the buildings never wanted to lose the technology, right? So another collaboration. This company we took to 20 million in 4 years. So without all those different players coming together, we would not be able to achieve what we achieved there. There's plenty of other stories. I don't want to take up too much of the panel's time. So yeah, you can ask me questions and we can continue. Back to you, Mr. Eric.
Well, so the part of the collaboration that I am doing with Johan is, originally I met them as basically they were the CRM provider. But like any good entrepreneur, they look at what they're doing, reevaluate, and then sometimes you pivot. And they recently pivoted. I think Johan told me a little bit earlier, it's about 9 weeks now. And now they are becoming a primary service provider of all of the other agencies that are involved with this CRM, which, by the way, that's 15,000 agencies across the globe and 523,000 users of the system. And what we do is we put together white label solutions that can be plugged into the system that make it bigger and better than what they already had. So in some cases, they're coming to me with solutions, and sometimes I'm finding solutions, and we're going to plug it in and we'll partner up on it and blow it up together. And the one thing that's great about Yaillen is he understands the value of collaborations and understands that, and his basic mentality is, hey, it's great that you're bringing me stuff, but I want to make sure that you're successful. And, that's the mentality that I bring in. When you find people that have that same value in business that you have, you really, it becomes magical at the end.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Yes.
And yeah, so the pivot that Eric's talking about is we have our software and we were signing up all these clients, and then this guy came to us and said, hey, can you white label this? And we said, yeah, we could, but we were planning to do it June next year. He said, can you white label it over the weekend? And we launch it on Monday. So, yeah, I guess we could.
You said yes.
we said yes. And, and then Monday we launched, and that day we onboarded, I think, 100 clients. By the end of the week, we had 200. Week 3, we had 300. Way up to week 9 now, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And it's exponential growth. And again, it's through collaboration. We've done 2 joint ventures, two emails, so 2 webinars so far, and it's blown up. We've got about 8 more that are going to happen before the end of the year. And it's all win-win-win. As long as everybody's winning, we all win. Model is a distribution model. So we started off selling software to businesses, small businesses. And then now we've ended up selling software to agencies. And then the agencies are not only our clients, but they're now our distributors because they're using our software to sell it to their clients. So it's it's quite an interesting business model. It's only, as Eric said, only 9 weeks ago we launched this thing, and it has surpassed everything that we've done in the last year, which is pretty awesome.
You know, there's this rule that somebody told me, and that it was, when an opportunity presents itself, take it. Figure it out later. You might not figure it out immediately, but take it and figure it out. And in fact, you know, my original pivot after I stopped working for Chad and Perry on their software development was I started writing a book. I had a concept called the Megafluence Method, and that's about how to be a market leader in your niche, not only in our current Web 2.0 world, but in a future decentralized Web 3.0 economy. But then all of a sudden, some things started to happen, and maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, some opportunities presented themselves, and it was going to be a natural to want to do things with Johan and his partners, Walt and Chris. And it's like, I'm pivoting. It wasn't the direction I was going to go, but it seems like the smarter way to go. And then, in fact, yesterday, Perry, we were at an event with Perry Belcher, and they presented an opportunity, and it's like, okay, this isn't a long-term opportunity. It's a short-term opportunity, but it's a good one. Okay, I'll pivot. I'll take that one as well and figure out how to do it at the end. And so what did I do right before I hopped on a call with this? I talked to Johan about it, and we're going to figure something out there.
It's a little like that, jumping off the cliff and building your parachute on the way down, right?
Exactly.
What Eric did was he saw an idea, and he said, who in my network could I launch this with quickly without me having to do the majority of the effort? Now, there's a lot of successful people who always preach about hard work, hard work, hard work. But most of the people who are very successful, you'll realize that they don't do hard work. They do smart work. And so they go, who in my network can launch this thing or help me launch this quicker? And so Eric came to me and said, hey, here's the opportunity. This is what we could do. And I went, oh, we already did that 2 years ago. We've got all the infrastructure. All we got to do is plug in, go get me the presentation, the video. We can plug it in here and it'll be launched. The effort from Eric and myself would probably be 2 days worth of work, but the returns from that would be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. And again, it comes from understanding who's in your network, which is basically the biggest hidden asset that most people overlook, is who is in my network who can help me get to where I want to go. Through my life, I've had the privilege of spending a lot of time with a lot of poor people. When I say poor, I'm talking about mentality, and rich people, and I'm talking about mentality again, your mindset. And so what I noticed was I'd talk to the people with the poor mindset, and I'd say, hey, James, how you going? How's that idea? Oh, I can't tell you about that idea. You've got a software company. You could build it. Okay, cool, no problem. A year goes by. Hey, James, how's that idea going? Yeah, I was going to do it, but then, something happened and blah, blah, blah. Another year later, hey, James, how's that idea going? Uber stole my idea. That was my idea. That I was going to build that. Okay, fair enough. And then whereas the rich people, rich in mentality, they always say, hey, I've got this great idea. I need this. Do you know anybody who could help me fill any of these roles? Yes, I do. Let me make 5 introductions. Go interview them. Eric came to me. He said, hey, I'm running this thing in January. Do you know anybody in the property sector? I'm like, yeah, sure. Here you go. And I hooked him up to like 4 or 5 people straight away. So that's, when you've got a great idea, when you have the right people in the network, you can action things really quickly. And it's all through collaboration. So Regina, well done putting all this together.
Thanks, Johan.
So while I was working with Perry and Chad, eventually I started looking at what the landscape was, and I had started getting interested in things like cryptocurrency and blockchain and all that. And I don't remember exactly how it came about, but somehow Matt's partner reached out to me on LinkedIn, and we started a conversation, and eventually Matt and I connected. And he was well immersed into the areas that I was interested in. And as we talked, there were some things that, there were a lot of things that he is an expert in that I know nothing about. but there's some things that I could bring to the table that I was maybe better positioned to help out with. And so we kind of tried to figure out where we could collaborate on those things. And so that's how I got to meet Matt. So
Yeah,
why don't you tell us about that?
I will indeed. I think that you said that well. First of all, I have to apologize for my setting. I was stuck in an LA traffic jam. I just pulled over. Sometimes in life you have to improvise, which is what I did. But yeah, so Eric said correctly that I am in the AR/VR space, CEO of MetaMega, and collaboration is something it's very important to us that we use quite frequently. Eric and I are collaborating on a few things, but in general, I would say it's an approach that I take on any new project that I'm doing. As a career financier, I sometimes think in terms of how much is this going to cost. And I think that new entrepreneurs, they think that way as well. They ask themselves, how am I going to pay for this new project I have? And then they struggle with trying to round up the money and talking to people and begging for money. And sometimes it results in a lot of dead ends. But another strategy is to just figure out who has some synergy with you, what company might be in your industry that might have some interest in what you're doing, and how can we work together? Because sometimes they're very excited by the opportunity to work with someone else on something, and they'll do it. For example, one of the things I'm working on here in Los Angeles is an amusement park for augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, something on the scope of a Universal Studios, very, very large amusement park that I can't possibly fund on my own. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars of investment that needs to go into this. But one thing I can do is I can go talk to the game companies in the area that are in the business of creating content for something like this, and convincing them that they ought to participate in this project and produce content, and thereby save me and my team a lot of money. So that's a way of thinking that you can engage in to finance the things that you want to finance on a bit of a budget. And then there's also the issue of critical mass. Anytime you're doing something, you really want it to be as spectacular as it possibly can be. And when you get more people involved and they're bringing their contacts to the table, it just results in a better overall product, and just something that works bigger and it helps your reputation and it's good for the next project. But yeah, that's kind of how I approach collaboration. Eric and I are collaborating on a few neat things right now, a driver navigation system for augmented reality glasses that we're about to launch. But yeah, I guess that's my point of view on that.
Yeah, and by the way, there's some technology that Matt has developed that is absolutely phenomenal. And some of it unfortunately is on the back burner because you can only do so much in a day when you're building things like this out. But there's some great opportunities, and I'm trying to build, in some of those are areas that I have some knowledge or expertise or connections. And so I'm trying to find people to partner up in those areas. And then we can hopefully bring that to the table. And Matt has enough connections. It's not like he has to go and develop everything himself. He has the connections in the developer community that, the infrastructure is there, the code base is already there. It's just getting it to that next final level that we can actually take it public. So obviously, people are interested in those things. They should reach back out to all of us.
Fantastic. The work that you're all doing is very interesting from someone who sits outside of that world to some degree, that the augmented reality, the virtual reality. I've been involved in it a little bit, but a lot of it kind of, hits me about here. Feel a bit over my head on a lot of it. And so it's really exciting to hear you talk about it and hear the things that you're doing with it. And
yeah.
Yeah.
So the connection with Dana, of course, started with, we are part of this community. Now, I started working on the development side with Chad Nicely and Perry Belcher on their projects. And she was part of that community. And we, learned a little bit about each other while being in that community. And, my background includes sports marketing, entertainment marketing, sponsorships, technology, And those were all things that Dana was focused on. And so it was like, well, let's just at least talk, and maybe there's something that we can figure out and help each other out. And so that's how we just started the conversation. And sometimes that's the first thing. And you just have to start the conversation. I remember when I was, I'm dealing with a big influencer out of the UK. Guy has 6 million followers. And I came to Johan and said, hey, how could we possibly do X, Y, and Z? And he goes, how did you connect with this person? I go, it's just, I'm that kind of person. I'll connect with people. And so that's the one thing is you should, first of all, don't be so ego driven that you think you can do everything yourself to begin with. And the other position I always take is I'd rather have a small piece of a big pie than a big piece of a small pie.
Yeah.
Because usually that small piece is going to end up being a lot bigger at the end if you have the right collaboration partners. And so I started discussions with Dana, and now she can kind of tell us a little bit about what she does and what we're talking about.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me, Eric. Thank you for having me too, Regina. Everyone's very impressive. This is very interesting. So I do business development for a NASCAR driver. She is the only female NASCAR driver who also is a team owner. So there's lots of different challenges and excitement for her on that level. And I guess my introduction into NASCAR started probably about 20 years ago. I hated the apparel that they presented. And if anyone knows anything about NASCAR 25 years ago, it was all pretty tacky. And I was a girl from New York who was in fashion, and I did not want to wear any of those clothes. So I decided that I was going to find a way to do the apparel and do it more for females. So I knew I had to connect with the fans in some way. So I created a website called driverappearances.com. And I started to list the NASCAR driver appearances throughout the season all over the country. So I had a way to connect with the fans. So when I was ready to sell, I had my audience and my people ready to buy. So an interesting thing happened, again, with the pivoting. I started working with a lot of the sponsors, and just on the level of listing their appearances and then talking more to them. And I realized that they'd had no idea what they were doing. They were Madison Avenue people who had, most of them, never been to a race. They didn't know anything about NASCAR. They certainly knew nothing about the fans. Well, I started to really grow a big connection with the fans, especially via Twitter when Twitter became really big. So my day was pretty much talking to the fans. And the natural progression for me was to start a business where I connected. I guess it was like the influencer back then when that became big. But the sponsors would hire me to basically bring their marketing message directly to the fans. And because I really knew the fans well, I knew how to market to them. I knew how to create that really happy, good feeling for the sponsors and how the sponsors should connect with the fans to get their marketing message. So that I did that for quite a few years. And then the sport kind of changed. Things got very negative. And I kind of just didn't like that anymore. The fan base it was a different dynamic, very different energy. So I had become friends with Jen, who's the NASCAR driver. And she kept asking me to come and work for her on finding sponsorship, finding the money, I guess. And that went on for a little while, and she finally convinced me. So I started in January 2020. And I guess you can imagine what happened by March. I was pretty much out of a job. NASCAR shut down the sport to outside people, teams only. And there was no more sponsorship really being sold at that time. And the package I was selling required you to be in the garage. And that didn't happen. So we are getting back to it. And like Eric told you, we started collaborating, and it's been really interesting. I think collaboration is super important, and I want to just take the sponsorship in a different level, the same way I did with how sponsors dealt with fans. I really want to see the sponsorship from a company, a small company, get really great benefit from putting just their logo on the car. Because in this sport, a lot of the teams and drivers are kind of like, oh, the big value is the logo. And that's really not the big value. And I feel like that teams and drivers can bring a lot more value. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to do. So that blue ocean mentality, change how sponsorship looks in NASCAR. And Eric was nice enough to collaborate with me on that and give me lots of great ideas. And so anyway, that's kind of my story.
So one of the things that was part of that was, you know, seeing what the NASCAR world was doing in new things like NFTs. Mm-hmm. And in talking to Dana, she goes, oh my gosh, you should see how these things are blowing up with the fans. They hate it. And what I really realized very early on is that 99% of the NFTs when it first came out were on a corporate side of things, a business side of things, they were just trash. Because all it was a stupid piece of digital art that had no value whatsoever. But because it was this new shiny object, people were putting a lot of money in it. And quite frankly, the vast majority of people are losing money. Well, so there we have my initial collaboration with Matt, who understands that world big time. And he was putting some things together with NFTs and influencers. And obviously Dana, representing the only female NASCAR driver owner, she's a big time influencer. And I have my own philosophy of how to do NFTs the right way and enhance your brand instead of destroy your brand.
Mm. Yeah. And I think, with that, I told Eric, I said, it's a huge market for the fans. They just don't know it yet. They just don't understand it. So come teach them and then benefit from being the one who brought them the knowledge and understanding. And because once they understand it, then, it took me a while to understand. I think most people don't understand it. You're like, oh, you're going to buy a digital art? Like what exactly? Yeah, exactly, Regina. Exactly.
It's you up here.
And then it was explained to me by someone else. And I went, okay, now I get the value.
Yeah.
Now I get the value.
So what I'm going to be doing, and it's been a long time coming, is I'm going to be putting together some ideas for Dana to take to her client on how we can take what she does and monetize in a better way than the way they're monetizing their business today, and to set the standard for all other drivers and team owners in NASCAR. And of course, when it's time to put together the technology side of things, who do you think I'm going to turn to for that other than Matt? And of course, with what Matt and I are working on right now with this augmented reality driving app. Now, we're looking more right now because the bigger audience is everybody who drives. But there's also going to be some opportunities once you get that level done where we can maybe do some specialty things that are for the racing community. And it doesn't necessarily have to be just NASCAR, but it can ultimately be Formula One, it can be boat racing, it can be cycling, it can be all of them. Once the technology is done, then it's just a matter of whether there's enough value in it for us to extend that into those worlds. And so you still are going to need a spokesperson. And what better spokesperson than someone who's a professional driver to talk about something that's driving related? So again, how do you put the pieces together to get to that next level?
Mm-hmm. Very interesting, sir. Matt, go ahead.
It's certainly a case of using all of your context and thinking how they really link together and maximizing that those relationships. So you're always very clever in that respect, Eric.
Well, and it's always about how can you create these win-win-win situations.
Always.
And you, every time you add a new player, it's just, okay, well, how can they win? And in some cases, I mean, you see it all the time when people are going out just getting investors. You know, in a perfect world, you have one investor and they get the bulk of the share of the company and the profits and everything at the end. But a smart investor knows that's not necessarily the best way to maximize the return on their investment. And so they're willing to dilute their share in a company because they can see the result is going to be far bigger with that dilution of whatever they have than by keeping it all to themselves. Small time players want to have 100% of their company and be 100% in control. The smarter players are willing to dilute their ownership to get the right players because the right players can take them to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
true.
and I think that's what's great about what I like about this group and what I like about Eric and probably Regina, you too, and Matt, since we're just first meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I like how, and I like to do this too. You meet someone, right? And you think, okay, how can we work together that we both benefit? There's a lot of people out there who will be like, how do I benefit? So I think everything works better. You know, the bike goes better when everybody's pedaling or when everyone's rowing. So I think there's just so much value in that. So it's great to always meet people who have that mindset of working together so everybody can benefit.
Yes. And
also,
then taking that, go ahead, Eric.
There's a philosophy, and I don't remember who told it to me first, but it's when an opportunity presents itself, even if you don't know how it's going to fit, take it and figure it out later. So I think you and I were talking earlier, and you said it's kind of like building your parachute, jumping off a cliff and building your parachute on the way down.
On the way down, absolutely.
And so Dana knows this, but yesterday in our workshop with Perry Belcher, we were presented an opportunity. Now, is it a direction that I was thinking about going in? No.
Yeah.
Did I take it? Did I take it? Yes. And I have already reached out to like 4 or 5 people, Johan included, and I'm going to figure out how to blow it up because it's an opportunity that has a short lifespan. It's only going to be for 2 years. But there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of money to be made, and it will help an awful lot of people who are able to take advantage of it. And ultimately, my goal at the end of the day is how can I help others? Mm-hmm. So if I can help others and make money at it at the same time, even better. And again, as you know, Dana knows, we just were presented this yesterday, and you know, Johan is already on board to collaborate with me on it. We're creating a win-win situation. I have a couple other people already lined up. Matt doesn't even know about it yet, but yeah.
I'm very fascinated by it.
That's like me.
It's coming, Matt. It's
coming.
And so we're going to, obviously I can only handle one call at a time, but we'll take care of Matt next.
You have successfully veiled it in mystery, so it's more interesting.
Yeah. Exactly. And, to add to what Dana was saying, too, about when you meet someone, you're looking for that, how can we collaborate? But the other part of that I'm always thinking of, too, is who can I introduce them to? Who do I know that can be a really good collaborative partner for them and just sit back and watch what happens? It's just so exciting to see where they take it and where they go with it. And we all know a lot of people that we can introduce others to. And you just never know where those collaborations will go. And it's nice to be the fly on the wall. Sometimes it's nice to be part of the collaboration, but it's also nice to be the fly on the wall and see what people do when they connect with the right people.
And this conference that Matt is putting on is very much of that vein. He's putting together a conference for the community of people that are developing in the AR space. And a lot of that is just about building those collaborations, isn't it, Matt?
It is indeed, and it's a bit of a lost art. And I think it's the way that business used to be done, and we've gotten away from it a little bit in the social media era. But it's really the best way to get things done. But connect people together, and hopefully they create a strong bond and do good things. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, Matt was in Las Vegas a few weeks ago, and I had developed a relationship with a company here in Las Vegas that specializes in building 3D virtual reality, I guess, knowledgeware or edutainment, where you basically, taking the courses that a lot of entrepreneurs are creating now, the e-courses, and taking it to the next level with 3D video. And they've done programs with people like Les Brown and Kevin Harrington and Forbes Riley, and they have the largest library of that type of thing. Well, again, that might be something that Dana will be interested in taking to her client, Jennifer, right, and that we can then introduce to other people in the NASCAR world. Or there might be a project, and in fact, here's another collaboration. The guys that I have that relationship with, they were approached by a company in Australia that has a brand new golf tour that they want to take international, and they want to have an event in the US. But these guys know nothing about golf. And it just so happens that I used to be the CEO of a golf association.
Exactly.
So interestingly enough, we had a meeting 2 weeks ago, and then they introduced me to their partner in Australia on Monday. And wouldn't you know it, I already knew the guy.
That's fine.
And so I am now representing them. They want to do an international series of their golf tour. They want to do an event in Australia, Singapore, Dubai, and in the UK, with either the championship or the kickoff here in Las Vegas. And I'm going to be basically introducing them for sponsors who would like to be the title sponsor of either just one event or the entire series. And we're looking for a 2-year deal. So, now we're talking about some big money, because, they would like to do this entire thing. It's going to be a $10 million sponsorship, but it's going to include my friends who do the VR, and we're going to do live VR 3D 360 streaming of this golf event to the world.
Wow.
Whenever they do it. So it's going to be a whole new level for golf entertainment.
Interesting.
The world is changing, isn't it?
And we all have, it's become so complex that there's nobody who can handle everything by themselves.
Agreed. And, as we talk about thinking about who we can introduce to, as I've met each of you today, and of course, Eric and I have already met, but as he and I had a little conversation before everybody else came on, I realized there was somebody I needed to introduce him to. And as I've met each of you, I've thought of someone else I need to make sure that you guys meet, and so, I mean, that's what we should always be looking for, is who can we introduce them to that can collaborate with them. So
Yeah,
this has been a great conversation. Go ahead, Matt.
I will do some similar thinking in that respect, and especially when Eric tells me a little bit more about what you do, Regina, and what you do, Dana, then I will also put some thought into who I might know that would be helpful to your mission.
Appreciate that very much.
Same. Yeah.
And
this has been awesome.
In fact, the meeting that you put me up with, I actually have to, that just reminded me, I've been remiss in following up with him, because he's supposed to put together a proposal for me for what he does to take to one of the guys that another person I'm working with.
Collaborations.
Yes, you're the king, Eric.
This has been great. Well, you guys have added so much value to this conversation. I so appreciate it. Every show that I do of this is so different. There are no two that are anything alike, because it's all based on the experiences that we've each had in terms of collaboration. And each time I am amazed at what comes out of this. So thank you all for being here. Let's just do a quick round of final thoughts on collaborations. And we'll have Eric go last. We'll start with Dana, and then we'll go Matt, and then we'll have Eric go last. And as part of that, please let folks know how they can get in touch with you, okay?
Sure.
Dana?
So yeah, so this has been, again, very interesting. Thank you so much for having me. And obviously collaboration is everything. And it really comes down to getting with the right people and making sure that everybody, there was sort of that networking where you go and you find referrals for people. And that felt a little like pressure, like I got to show up with someone's name and whatever. So I kind of like this format because it just feels very organic. And it's just, how can I help you? Maybe I can connect you with someone and you all can work together. So it feels very mutual rather than here's that piece of paper and it's a friend and I don't know. So I appreciate this is fascinating. And so to reach me, my email address is Dana at DK Concepts, and I guess you can see dkconcepts.com. And if Matt and Regina, if you want to just reach out and just let me know what you're looking for, and I could see if there's some way that I can connect you with something you're looking, type of person.
Awesome.
That would be great.
Appreciate that very much, Dana. Thank you.
Yeah.
Matt?
So my advice would be that to think in terms of collaborations. Don't always think in terms of money, and figure out how you can utilize your existing network and your potential network to accomplish what you want to accomplish, and don't despair if you are not seeing a way to finance everything. To get a hold of me, it's probably best to go to maybe my LinkedIn page, just CEO at MetaMega. You'll find me, or you can email me at mattsmith@metamega.live. And yeah, I'd be happy to respond to whatever comes my way.
Awesome. Thank you. And Eric?
Well, so before I get to me, what I would say is, look, if you're interested in being part of the NASCAR world and sponsoring an event, and especially if you're a local business, just think of if you happen to be by one of, within maybe an hour to 90 minutes of track, for instance, Bristol or Talladega or Daytona, any of the places that NASCAR goes to, certainly reach out to Dana, and you can also reach out to me. And hey, I'm the connector in many cases, so more than happy to do that. Also, if you're interested in doing anything in NFTs, blockchain, augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, sometimes it's just about talking about your idea first.
Right, that's true.
And so, maybe the first point is going to be, in terms of your initial thoughts, is reaching out again to someone like me. We can talk about it, and then I can be more of a filter for Matt. And Matt will tell me whether it's going to work or not in his world, but he might then say, no, it's not going to work with me. But, I know this developer who does X, Y, and Z, and he's already in that particular niche. And so that's, again, where that collaboration works out. And then, my specialty, for the most part, even though it might seem that all I do is connect people together, it's in branding and brand strategy and in marketing communications. And again, this whole concept that I'm putting together, it's called the Megafluence Method. And it's a 4-part framework if you want to be a market leader in your niche, whether it's in our current Web 2.0 world or in a future decentralized Web 3.0 economy. It's the framework to do that, of which part 1 is branding. Part 2 is understanding that you need to have methods, systems, and processes in place. Even if it's just a piece of paper and a checklist document, you got to start there first. Then you need to know who your ideal customer is and how to communicate with them. And then if you want to grow and scale, that's when you have to start thinking about technology. And once you have that technology, then you can start reaching for the stars and thinking beyond it. And that's when you start thinking of things like NFTs and metaverses, or with what, Matt is a huge thinker in this. He's taking it beyond metaverse to megaverse, which, to make it simple for everyone, A metaverse right now is like a self-contained solar system, and you can't travel beyond it. Whereas a megaverse is a collection of metaverses, and there's interoperability. So you can go from one to another, and you're not always going through a black hole. But whatever assets you have in one metaverse, you'll be able to ultimately take to another one. And that's the things that Matt is thinking about. He's not thinking about just tomorrow. He's thinking about 10, 20 years down the road and laying the foundation for it today so that he's prepared to get there tomorrow. So whatever it is you're doing, if those are things that ultimately interest you, oftentimes the conversation is difficult. It's going to be, you know what, you're not ready. And we're not going to take you down that path because it's going to be a crash and burn for everybody. Yeah. And we got to start at the very basics and do the first thing first. And that is, what is your brand? What is the promise that you have to your customer? And how can we best fulfill that promise?
Excellent. Thank you.
Of course, I can be reached at eric@cognologicfx.com. Cognologic FX, by the way, is a mashup of the words cognitive, logical, and effects, because I use my cognitive abilities to come up with logical solutions that have positive effects.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Yes, yes. This was fantastic, folks. Appreciate you so much being here. Folks, reach out to them. If you have something in their realms and the areas that they're working in, or you think that they can be a good connection for you, don't hesitate to reach out to them. And with that, I want to again thank everyone for being here and thank our audience for listening today. And we'll see you next time on Collaboration Conversations. Bye for now.
Thank you.